Hello everybody, and thanks so much for all the support with my videos. I'm very grateful. Today I want to speak about the Economic Social Research Institute, which has come out with a report about exploitative work practices, in particular about non-EU workers. Now, this is a huge fallout from the immigration industry, which has fell on silent ears in Ireland because it hasn't been really remarked upon by the trade unions, unsurprisingly, and many of the so-called opposition parties who always claim they're standing up for workers' rights. But of course, they're fully behind the immigration agenda of the political establishment and say nothing about the real factors of cheap labour. But this report has had some startling facts to say there wasn't enough inspections taking place of workplaces. So many employers were violating and exploiting basic workers' and labourers' rights. And this happened predominantly in the food service sector. Now, last year, the report noted that 4,727 inspections took place, and of those inspections, 293 breaches were found in the Workplace Relations Commission. That is a startling figure. Just shows you the absolute abject conditions people are in at the moment, and of course being exploited by big employers. Now, there are nearly 200,000 registered employers in Ireland, and the RSI recommends there should be at least 80, perhaps more, inspectors, which is nowhere near enough to enforce these practices. Maybe a good idea would be to have a policy on immigration rather than currently what they're having, which is just absolute chaos, which benefits the big employers again, which I've noticed many times about cheap labour. Now, we're fully aware of the employment permit scam, and also with the student visa, the way that's being used as well as big bonanza for employers as well. And this comes in the same context where Fianna Fáil in their manifesto pushed forward a labour needs assessment to state they were looking for workers in hospitality, retail, carers and construction. Again, trying to suppress wages and boost big profits again in Irish society. But of course, this won't be spoken about by any major opposition party yet again. And at the same time, so many people in Irish society are struggling. Ireland's a low-wage economy. 1 in 5 workers are on low pay. Back about 6 years ago, a big assessment was brought forward by the central bank to say the amount of extra workers we need. They claim we're in full employment. The economy's never been in better health. But the reality is more and more people are struggling. 1 in 5 workers that are working part-time are underemployed. So that means they could work more hours, but of course they're not getting more hours. And not to mention the so-called massaging of figures through community employment schemes and all these other schemes used to massage the figures to claim the economy is in rude health for ordinary people, when it's not. When corporate profits have tripled over the last number of years, wages have been suppressed, and we have big employers' confederations such as IBEC who have completed over 430 returns last year, and they've also work at behest of the big enterprises, big businesses, big corporations from across the financial world to the tech world to aircraft leasing companies also they lobby for. Last year in the lobbying register there was over 430 accounts of representations by IBEC to government departments in the year. Well over 1 per day representations. Just remarkable amount of insight and an indoor revolving door essentially towards the government parties who push forward their policies at will that favour the big corporations to the expense of ordinary people. And of course the genesis of IBEC goes back to William Martin Murphy, who set up the Federation of Irish Employers. And people would know in Irish history about William Martin Murphy, the famous vulture at Dartry Hall that was depicted by James Connolly in the Workers' Republic well over 100 years ago. Remember, most notably from the lockout, the Dublin Tramways Company and owner of the Independent newspaper and the old Gresham Hotel, where it was located on O'Connell Street. Again, part of the establishment. And now what we have is the Irish Business Employers Confederation calling the shots in Irish society, where ordinary people are the ones that pick up the tab because of the cheap labour fallout. But of course, this won't be discussed on mainstream media because they're not interested in dealing with the real facts and the real evidence, what's going on with immigration and how the industry benefits the very rich. And this is at the same time where we have the cost of living disaster in Ireland. So many working poor And as I said, low pay discrimination also as well amongst people who are under 20, who aren't even on the minimum wage, which goes nowhere near to pay the sky high rents. Where you see profits have increased, rents have increased, the cost of living has gone off the charts for more and more people, immigration is going off the charts at record levels. And then at the same time, we have a huge influx of people into Ireland as well, and many are working, as I said, through the employment and work permit system, through the student visa system also as well, and being forced into low pay. And at the sharpest end, we see the exploitation that's taken place that I've noticed many times, but of course the unions have been completely silent on. So much for people standing up for workers' rights, because workers' rights were always struggled for and won for, and it's critically important now more than ever that they're spoken up for. But this is what has been used, this is what it's still being used for. We saw a huge influx in the last year, for instance, and the vast majority will come on these work permit schemes and student visa schemes also as well, which are opening the door to exploitation by big employers, while profits increase, while the inequalities deepen in society, while it puts pressure on basic public services, under-resourced and overstretched public services and social services up and down the country, and forcing a new generation, younger generation, to emigrate, which is absolutely disgusting, disgraceful, and needs to change, needs to be called out on to what's happening in Irish society. But unfortunately, in the last week, we've seen the same parties and the status quo being intact in Ireland. It needs to dramatically change, where we need to put the needs of the people top of the agenda rather than the big corporations and beholden to these big lobbyists like the Irish Business Employers Confederation, who are doing the bidding of the big corporations, the big employers, and suppressing wages and conditions for working class people who have always struggled and won their rights through struggle. And that's what we need to remember now more than ever. So thanks for the support of my videos. If you enjoyed them, please press subscribe, and also please share them to any people you know. Share the link to the video through WhatsApp and various other means to friends, family members and people in the community far and wide as well. So thanks for the support, and take care. See you all soon. Slán, bye.